What if I told you there's a place where sound doesn't exist? Not because it's quiet, but because something is actively devouring every noise you make. Picture this. You're an experienced hiker, someone who's conquered mountains and navigated the most treacherous trails. You've heard every forest sound imaginable. The rustle of leaves, the snap of twigs, the distant call of wildlife. But what happens when you enter a forest where these sounds don't just fade away? They're being consumed by something that shouldn't exist. If this opening already has your heart racing, hit that like button, because what you're about to hear will make you question everything you think you know about the natural world. This isn't just another camping horror story. This isn't about getting lost and finding your way home. This is about Emily Carter, a 29-year-old wilderness photographer who documented something that defies explanation. Something that turned a routine hiking trip into a nightmare that challenges the very fabric of reality itself. Emily's camera was found 3 weeks after she was reported missing. The memory card contained 247 photographs that paint a picture so disturbing, so impossible, that the local authorities sealed the evidence and refused to release it to her family. But I've obtained copies of those images and the investigation files, and what they reveal about the Whisper Pine Forest will change how you think about stepping foot in the wilderness ever again. The question isn't whether you'll believe what happened to Emily. The question is whether you'll be brave enough to hear the truth about what's really lurking in those ancient trees, something that's been waiting, watching, and feeding on the sounds of the living for centuries. Something that turns the very concept of silence into a predatory force. Are you ready to discover why some places on this earth were never meant for human ears? Because once you hear Emily's story, you'll understand why the silence in certain forests isn't empty, it's hungry. Emily Carter had been photographing wilderness landscapes for over a decade. Her Instagram account, @WildlandsAdventures, boasted 180,000 followers who eagerly awaited her breathtaking shots of untouched natural beauty. She was meticulous, professional, and, most importantly, never reckless. Emily always filed detailed trip reports, carried emergency beacons, and maintained strict check-in schedules with her emergency contacts. That's what made her disappearance so bewildering. On October 14th, 2023, Emily set out for what should have been a routine 3-day photography expedition in the Cascade Mountains of Washington state. Her target destination was a lesser-known section of old-growth forest called Whisper Pine, a name that locals claimed came from the way wind moved through the ancient Douglas firs, creating an almost musical quality to the forest atmosphere. But here's where the story takes its first disturbing turn. When search and rescue teams scoured the area after Emily failed to return, they noticed something peculiar about Whisper Pine Forest. Something that even the most experienced woodsmen found unsettling. The forest was completely, unnaturally silent. Not quiet, silent. There's a profound difference that anyone who's spent time in true wilderness understands. Forests are never actually quiet. There's always something. The creak of settling wood, the scurry of small animals through undergrowth, the distant call of birds, the whisper of wind through branches. Even in winter, even at night, forests maintain a subtle symphony of life. But Whisper Pine offered nothing. No bird calls, no insect hums, no rustling leaves. Even the search team's own voices seemed to die mere feet from their mouths, as if the very air was absorbing sound before it could travel. The search lasted 12 days. Helicopters, thermal imaging, tracking dogs. Every resource available was deployed. The dogs, notably, refused to enter the deeper sections of the forest. They would approach the tree-line, whine, and back away with their tails between their legs, displaying behavior that their handlers had never seen before. On day 13, a local hiking guide named Marcus Webb discovered Emily's camera equipment approximately 2.3 miles inside the forest boundary, carefully placed on a fallen log, as if someone had intentionally displayed it. Her backpack, tent, and personal belongings were never found, but the camera, a professional-grade Canon with weather sealing, was in perfect condition despite 2 weeks of Pacific Northwest weather. Drop a comment below if you've ever experienced an unnaturally quiet forest, because what I'm about to share from Emily's final photographs might explain what you actually encountered. The memory card contained a digital breadcrumb trail of Emily's final 3 days. The timestamps on the files told a story that investigators initially dismissed as equipment malfunction. According to the metadata, Emily had been taking photographs continuously for 73 consecutive hours, despite her trip being planned for only 72 hours total, and her emergency beacon having activated for exactly 47 minutes before going silent on day 2. But the most disturbing aspect wasn't the timeline inconsistencies. It was what the photographs revealed about the true nature of silence itself, and how something ancient and patient had been using that silence to hunt. To understand what happened to Emily, you need to understand the history of Whisper Pine Forest, a history that local authorities have worked very hard to keep buried. The area, now known as Whisper Pine, was originally inhabited by the Squaxin Island tribe for over 1,000 years. In their oral traditions, which I've spent months researching through tribal historians, this particular forest was never used for hunting, gathering, or ceremonies. It was considered scab, a word that roughly translates to the place where voices are eaten. According to tribal elder Maria Clearwater, who agreed to speak with me on condition of anonymity, her ancestors believed that certain places on Earth existed as feeding grounds for entities that subsisted on sound itself. These weren't malevolent spirits in the traditional sense, but rather natural predators that occupied a different level of reality, creatures that experienced sound the way we experience physical matter. Our people knew to speak in whispers when passing near such places, Maria explained, not out of reverence, but because loud sounds would draw their attention. They were always hungry, always listening, always waiting for something substantial to feed upon. When European settlers arrived in the 1800s, they initially dismissed these warnings as superstition. The first recorded incident occurred in 1847, when a logging crew of 12 men entered the forest to harvest its ancient Douglas firs. Only 3 men emerged, and their accounts were so contradictory and disturbing that the local newspaper refused to print them. The survivors described watching their companions simply fade away during conversations, as if their voices were being pulled from their throats by invisible forces. The logging company abandoned the area permanently after a second crew reported that their tools made no sound when striking trees. Axes hit bark in complete silence. Saws moved through wood without the familiar bite and grind. One logger, James Morrison, wrote in his diary, "It's as if the very forest is swallowing our existence, one sound at a time." If you're getting chills right now, make sure you're subscribed, because Emily's photographs prove that whatever these early settlers encountered is still actively hunting in those woods. Over the decades, Whisper Pine developed a reputation among locals. Hunting parties avoided it. Hikers were warned away. Even modern researchers studying old-growth ecosystems skirted its boundaries, though they couldn't articulate why the area felt so wrong. The Washington State Parks Department officially designated Whisper Pine as a sensitive ecosystem preserve in 1987, citing concerns about soil erosion and wildlife disruption. But the real reason for the designation, according to internal documents I obtained through FOIA requests, was a pattern of missing persons cases and disturbing reports from the few visitors who returned. Between 1987 and 2023, 14 people had gone missing in or near Whisper Pine Forest. Not all were inexperienced hikers. The list included a Marine Corps survival instructor, 2 professional mycologists, and a team of 3 acoustic researchers from the University of Washington who had been studying sound dead zones in Pacific Northwest forests. The acoustic researcher's case is particularly relevant to Emily's story. In 2019, Dr. Amanda Foster, Dr. James Liu, and graduate student Kevin Torres entered Whisper Pine with sophisticated audio recording equipment, planning to document and analyze the forest's unusual acoustic properties. They hypothesized that the silence resulted from a unique combination of tree density, topographical features, and atmospheric conditions that created a natural anechoic chamber effect. Their equipment recorded 16 hours of complete silence before their emergency beacon activated. When search teams arrived, They found the researchers' equipment arranged in a perfect circle around a centuries-old Douglas fir, still recording nothing but emptiness. The final 47 minutes of their recordings captured something that made investigators classify the files as evidence in an ongoing investigation. I've heard those final 47 minutes. What Dr. Foster's team recorded wasn't just silence. It was the sound of silence itself becoming active, purposeful, predatory. You can actually hear the moment when the forest's attention turns toward them, the quality of the quiet shifting from natural to intentional. This was the environment Emily Carter entered on October 14, 2023. An experienced photographer with professional documentation skills, hiking alone into a place where sound goes to die and something ancient feeds on the voices of the living. Her first day's photographs seemed perfectly normal. Beautiful shots of ancient trees, filtered sunlight, moss-covered rocks. But as the timestamps progressed through her second and third days, Emily's images began documenting changes in the forest that would reveal the true horror of what lurks in Whisper Pine. Emily's photographs from October 14th tell a story of gradual realization and growing dread. The early images show her standard wilderness photography, carefully composed shots of towering Douglas firs, close-ups of intricate bark patterns, artistic captures of light filtering through the forest canopy. But by late afternoon, her photography style began to change dramatically. The metadata shows that starting around 7 p.m., Emily began taking rapid-fire sequences of the same locations, as if she was trying to document something that kept changing between shots. Her images reveal increasingly frantic attempts to capture proof of what she was experiencing. Photographs of her camping equipment taken from multiple angles, close-up shots of her hands holding various objects, pictures of her own shadow cast against trees. According to the investigation files, forensic analysis of these images revealed something disturbing. While Emily's camping equipment appeared normal in the photographs, acoustic analysis of the forest environment showed impossible readings. Sound wave visualization software, typically used to analyze crime scene audio, detected what experts described as acoustic voids, areas where sound waves simply terminated rather than reflecting or absorbing naturally. By 9 p.m., Emily's photographs became more erratic. She began taking pictures of empty forest spaces, as if she was trying to capture invisible presences. Multiple shots of the same trees, the same clearings, the same patches of undergrowth, taken seconds apart, but showing subtle differences that shouldn't have been possible with stationary subjects. If you've ever felt like you were being watched in a quiet place, drop a comment, because what Emily documented next might explain those instincts we all try to ignore. The most revealing evidence came from Emily's attempts to document her own voice. The investigation revealed that she had tried repeatedly to take videos, but every video file contained perfect visual quality with completely absent audio tracks. Not muffled sound, not distorted audio. Complete silence, as if the sound had been surgically removed from reality itself. According to forensic reconstructions of the scene, Emily spent hours conducting methodical experiments with her environment. Photographs show rocks positioned against tree trunks, where she had apparently tried to create impact sounds. Images of metal camping equipment arranged in configurations that suggested she was attempting to generate noise through various means. Multiple shots of her satellite phone's display screen, showing active connections that should have produced audio feedback. But perhaps the most chilling discovery was a sequence of 47 photographs taken between 11 p.m. and midnight on October 14th. These images show Emily's shadow cast against a large Douglas fir, but the shadow appears to be moving independently of her body position. Forensic analysis confirmed that the lighting conditions were consistent across all images, meaning the shadow movements couldn't be explained by changing light sources. The shadow sequence revealed something that shattered conventional understanding of what was happening in Whisper Pine Forest. In several frames, Emily's shadow appears to be gesturing or communicating with other shadows that have no corresponding physical forms. The investigation team identified at least 6 distinct shadow profiles that appeared consistently throughout the sequence, suggesting the presence of human figures that weren't visible to Emily's camera. Digital forensics experts confirmed that the shadow images hadn't been manipulated. Whatever Emily was documenting was actually occurring in real time, captured by equipment that recorded visual phenomena while being completely deaf to acoustic reality. The final photograph from October 14th shows Emily's campsite from an elevated angle, as if she had climbed a tree to get the shot. But here's what makes this image so disturbing. The photograph clearly shows Emily herself sitting by her camp stove, unaware that her picture was being taken. The metadata confirms that Emily's camera took this photo, but Emily appears as a subject within the frame. Make sure you're subscribed because what Emily documented on her second day reveals how the forest entity transitions from passive feeding to active manipulation. Investigation reports suggest that this was the moment Emily realized she wasn't experiencing a natural phenomenon. Something was actively interfering with her ability to produce sound while simultaneously documenting her responses and reactions. The entity was studying her, learning her patterns, preparing for the next phase of its feeding process. Emily's October 15 photographs would reveal that the forest's appetite wasn't limited to consuming sounds. It was learning to reproduce them, to weaponize them, and to use them as tools for psychological manipulation that would drive her deeper into the woods and further from any possibility of rescue. The acoustic predator of Whisper Pine Forest had moved beyond simple feeding. It had begun to hunt with the calculated precision of something that had been perfecting its techniques on human prey for over a century. And Emily Carter, with her professional documentation skills and methodical approach to problem solving, was about to become its most thoroughly studied victim. The hunt had begun in earnest. Emily's photographs from October 15th document a systematic campaign of psychological warfare unlike anything in recorded paranormal investigation. The forest entity had progressed beyond consuming her sounds. It was now actively using her own acoustic history against her, creating an environment designed to manipulate her behavior and drive her deeper into its territory. The morning images show Emily's increasingly frantic attempts to document auditory experiences that her camera couldn't record. Multiple photographs of empty forest spaces with notation scratched into the dirt nearby, indicating that she was hearing sounds from specific directions. The scratches form words, "My voice, calling help me, this way." Emily was creating a visual record of acoustic phenomena that existed only in the supernatural realm. But the most disturbing aspect of these morning photographs wasn't what they showed, it was what forensic analysis revealed about their timing. The metadata indicated that Emily was taking pictures in rapid response to audio stimuli, but the intervals between shots corresponded to the rhythm of human conversation. She was photographing her responses to an invisible dialogue, capturing one side of exchanges with entities that existed only as sound. Comment below if you've ever responded to voices that weren't really there, because what Emily experienced next suggests this might be more common than we realize. The afternoon sequence of photographs tells an even more disturbing story. Emily began documenting what the investigation files describe as impossible acoustic geography. She took over 200 photos of the same forest landmarks from multiple angles. But the metadata reveals she was responding to sounds that appear to be coming from different locations each time she photographed the same tree or rock formation. Forensic reconstruction suggests that the forest entity was creating a three-dimensional audio environment around Emily, using reproductions of her own voice and the voices of people from her personal life to guide her movements. The photographs show clear evidence of path deviation. Emily was no longer following established hiking trails, but instead moving through the forest in response to the strategically placed audio lures. The most psychologically devastating evidence came from Emily's photographs of personal items. The investigation revealed that she had been documenting objects that weren't physically present, taking pictures of empty spaces while apparently seeing familiar belongings from her past. Images of empty ground labeled in dirt scratching as mom's jewelry box, sister's guitar, childhood bedroom. The entity was now accessing not just Emily's acoustic memories, but the visual associations connected to significant sound from her personal history. It was creating a complete sensory reconstruction of emotionally meaningful experiences, using her own neurological patterns against her to manufacture an increasingly convincing alternate reality. Subscribe right now if you want to hear how this gets even more terrifying, because what Emily documented next proves that some predators are designed to exploit our deepest psychological vulnerabilities. By evening, Emily's photographs revealed that she had discovered something that fundamentally changed her understanding of what was happening. A sequence of images shows a clearing approximately 2.3 miles from her original campsite, containing what investigators later confirmed were personal belongings from multiple missing persons cases spanning several decades. But these weren't just abandoned possessions scattered randomly through the forest. The photographs show electronic devices, phones, cameras, GPS units, digital recorders, all arranged in a deliberate spiral pattern around the base of an enormous Douglas fir. Every device was still functional, still recording, creating what amounted to a decades-long surveillance and documentation project. The investigation team later confirmed that several of these devices were still transmitting data when Emily's camera was discovered. The forest entity had been conducting an extensive study of human psychological responses to acoustic manipulation, using each victim as a test subject in an ongoing research project designed to perfect its hunting techniques. Emily's final photographs from October 15th show evidence that she understood the true scope of what she was facing. Images of the electronic device array revealed detailed scratching in the dirt around each piece of equipment, documenting her analysis of the entity's data collection methods. Emily had realized that she wasn't just being hunted, she was being studied, and everything she did was contributing to the entity's growing understanding of human psychology. The last photograph from October 15th shows Emily's own camera positioned among the spiral of devices, as if she had accepted her role as both observer and subject in the entity's research project. The metadata indicates this image was taken using the camera's timer function, but it shows Emily walking away from the clearing, deeper into the forest, apparently following sounds that were leading her toward the final phase of the entity's feeding process. Emily's final photographs, taken throughout October 16th, document her complete psychological dissolution under the entity's sophisticated manipulation techniques. But more than showing her mental breakdown, these images reveal the true horror of what inhabits Whisper Pine Forest and the calculated precision with which it orchestrates the final stage of its feeding process. The early morning photographs show Emily documenting human figures moving through the forest around her. But forensic analysis revealed something impossible. The figures cast shadows and disturbed vegetation, but they produced no reflective light signatures consistent with actual physical presence. The investigation team concluded that Emily was seeing visual projections of the forest's previous victims, separated from their acoustic signatures and preserved as silent, walking remnants. The midday images are perhaps the most disturbing evidence in the entire case. Emily photographed herself interacting with these silent figures, shaking hands with empty air, embracing invisible forms, apparently having full conversations with entities that existed only in her manipulated perception. The forest had created a complete social environment using the preserved visual memories of its victims, while keeping their voices separate for its own predatory purposes. If this revelation is making your skin crawl, share this video with someone brave enough to handle the truth, because what Emily documented next proves that some horrors are designed to spread. The afternoon photographs reveal the entity's endgame. Emily began documenting herself, creating elaborate markers throughout the forest. Stone cairns, arranged branches, scratched messages in tree bark, all designed to guide future hikers toward the clearing where she had discovered the spiral of recording devices. The investigation confirmed that these markers formed a comprehensive navigation system pointing toward the entity's feeding ground from multiple forest entry points. But the most chilling discovery was Emily's final series of photographs. The last 23 images on her camera show her creating detailed trail maps by arranging rocks and sticks on the forest floor, then photographing these improvised navigation aids from multiple angles. Forensic analysis revealed that these rock arrangements, when translated into GPS coordinates, form precise directions to Whisper Pine Forest from major hiking trailheads throughout the region. The entity had turned Emily into its recruiting agent, just as it had preserved the visual forms of its previous victims while harvesting their voices. It was now using her systematic documentation skills to create a comprehensive guide system designed to attract new prey to the forest. The final photograph on Emily's camera shows her hands placing the camera equipment on the fallen log where it would eventually be discovered. But the angle of the shot suggests it was taken by someone else, someone or something standing directly behind Emily, as she carefully positioned the evidence that would eventually lead me to uncover this story. The timestamp on this final image reads October 17th, 12:04 a.m., but Emily had been officially missing for over 72 hours by that point. Whatever entity controlled Whisper Pine Forest had kept her conscious and functional long enough to complete her transformation from victim to accomplice in its ongoing predation of human prey. Emily Carter was officially declared missing on October 25th, 2023. Her body was never found. The camera equipment that contained her photographs was discovered exactly where I described, carefully placed on a fallen log as if it were meant to be found. But here's what the authorities didn't tell the public. Emily's emergency beacon continued transmitting for 3 more weeks after her disappearance. Not a distress signal, a location beacon, broadcasting the precise coordinates of the most accessible entrance to Whisper Pine Forest every 6 hours, like a scheduled invitation. The beacon finally went silent on November 15th, the same day that David Morrison, a 34-year-old acoustic engineer from Seattle, was reported missing in the area. Morrison had been researching anomalous sound phenomena and had specifically mentioned plans to investigate reports of impossible silence in the Cascade Mountains. His research equipment was found 2 weeks later, arranged in the same careful display as Emily's camera. The memory cards contained detailed photographs documenting his systematic analysis of the forest's sound-absorbing properties, ending with images of trail markers and navigation aids that he had created to guide others to the remarkable acoustic environment of Whisper Pine Forest. Drop a comment if you think you'd be brave enough to investigate this forest yourself. But remember what you've learned about how it recruits new victims. The pattern continues. Every few months, someone disappears in Whisper Pine Forest. Someone researching acoustic phenomena, or responding to online posts about amazing natural silence, or following GPS coordinates shared by the previous victim. The entity has adapted to modern technology, using our own communication networks to spread its influence and attract new prey. The Washington State Parks Department has quietly increased security around the area, but they can't legally prevent people from entering adjacent national forest land. They can't explain why they're restricting access without revealing the truth about what happened to Emily and the others. So the entity waits, patient and hungry, adding new voices to its collection and using them to call out to the living. It's learned that the most effective way to hunt humans is to let humans hunt themselves, following the familiar voices of those who came before. The silence in Whisper Pine Forest isn't empty. It's full of every word ever spoken by its victims, waiting to be used against the next person who ventures too deep into the trees where sound goes to die.